people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
I'm Alan McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Alan McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Well, you know, this is Pledge Drive season here at the studio at KFAI, and we want you, dear listeners and people who are connecting with us from around the Twin Cities and around the country, to support us, to join in the conversation. Brother Miguel is in studio. Miguel, what do people get for supporting this program, this station, and how can they do it?
Hey, how you doing, Al? It's
Great.
it's great to hear from you, and of course, it's nice. It's always nice to hear Al say my name. Thank you so much. Yes, no, it's our spring member drive, and you can go to kfai.org to check out the special premiums that are available for this season's member drive, of course. And I know we got some really cool T-shirts, and we're gonna be giving them a nice little colorful treatment. Some tie-dye T-shirts, special edition, handmade by KFAI staff, believe it or not. So it's definitely a special premium. And yes, you can go to kfai.org to give online. And we also have phone operators in our pledge drive room. In Studio 5, you can call 612-375-9030.
Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. I'm going to have you come back in midway through the program just to remind people and invite people to join and support. But I love KFAI. I love what we do, what we stand for. I love the access we provide to our world. And it's a unique, special, empathetic, and caring, progressive look or embrace or construction of community. That's what this is all about. That's what this show, The Conversation with Al McFarlane, is about. We're creating community. And so we want to make sure that you know how to help us grow. We thank you for being here as a loyal listener on KFAI, but you may be connecting with us on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter or LinkedIn. We want to grow the numbers by directing all of our traffic, our online traffic, to the Insight News YouTube page. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, Insight News, and subscribe. Be a subscriber. We want to grow our base to about 1,000. We're at just around 300 right now, but we know that the numbers are there. We believe that this content is rich, it's valuable, and it does what it promises. And that means we connect us to each other. Well, I want to start the program with a disturbing piece of news. Got a email or Facebook post from a relative who lives in Jackson, Mississippi, and it just floored me. And so I want to share that with you. But the story, I'll tell you what it's about. Ben Crump has come on board to represent a family, the family of a man who was murdered in Mississippi. And this story that I'm going to actually play you the video of, the audio of in a moment, says that Trump is asking for a federal investigation into the death of a man whose family says he was murdered. And the family of Rasheem Carter and Attorney Crump held a news conference in Jackson, Mississippi, and they released information about the deceased's autopsy. They say that the local authorities are trying to sweep the killing of this young man under the rug. And obviously the young man's mom has a broken heart. The young man, Rasheem Carter, 25, was reported missing last year and was last seen on October 2nd at a Super 9 hotel, according to the Laurel, Mississippi Police Department. And according to the family, he went to the local police in Taylorsville and reported that men were after him, that he was in fear for his life. Well, check this out. Well, one last thing I'll say. A month after that, his remains, he disappeared the next day. A month later, his remains were found in a wooded area south of that town, Taylorsville, Mississippi. And finally, Crump said that Rashim Carter's family was given his head and spinal cord in a box from the state crime lab. Crump said Rashim Carter's head was severed from his body. Check this out.
This case has been getting more and more attention in the past few months, and now the family has brought in a national prominent attorney to help them get justice. Rasheen Carter's body was found in Taylorsville in Smith County 1 month after he went missing on October 1st of last year. His family gathered at the federal courthouse Monday afternoon along with National Civil Rights Attorney Benjamin Crump. Crump wants Justice Department Civil Rights Division to investigate what he believes was a, quote, lynch mob of white people who chased down the 25-year-old father and murdered him. Carter's mom read a text message she says she got from her son one day before he disappeared.
He said, me and the owner of this company not seeing eye to eye, mama. His name, which I can't say at this time, but if anything happened to me, he's responsible for it. I'm too smart, mama. He got these guys wanting to kill me.
He was being chased by 3 trucks, loads of people who were chasing him. He went to the police. They should have tried to track down who were in those trucks.
Crump says Carter's family was given his head and spinal cord in a box from the state crime lab after the autopsy, and Crump says Carter's head was severed from his body. Now, the Smith County Sheriff has said if there is any evidence of foul play in Carter's death, he wants those people brought to justice. Crump says he wrote a letter to the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division just today asking for authorities to come in and take a close look at this case. For now, we're live at the federal courthouse in downtown Jackson. Ross Adams, 16 WAPT.
Well, thanks to WAPT for carrying that story. Gruesome indeed. You know, and what I think is that while America wants to say that we're better than we used to be, we're bigger than we used to be, and we should get over all of the atrocities of the past, that that kind of activity is the activity of a few errant individuals, but not reflective of the culture. I think this case, like the George Floyd case and the ones before and after, reveal that there is something in the culture that is adversary to the survival and the existence of Black people. Let me bring in my first guest, and we're not talking about this in particular, but it's a general conversation. My friend Shirlynn LaChapelle is a PhD level, might not be the right word for it, but a doctor's level nurse practitioner, right?
Not quite. We're working towards that, but I got my master's degree.
A master's degree, okay. And but you have experience in emergency room care,
yes,
and in mental health care as well. And when you see stories like the one I just read, what are your thoughts? And I want to use that to sort of move us into our general conversation about ordinary people who are feeling pressure from places you don't expect, but you know that's where it comes from. Shirlynn, go ahead.
I've got to hold on to my emotions as a mother and a grandmother. But when I saw that story, I think about that mother, and my God, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. That Mississippi is still Mississippi of the 50s, where lynch mobs fearlessly ride around in trucks, chasing down innocent Black people in order to murder. And what do you call someone who severs somebody's head and their spinal cord from the body. What do you, that's the most inhumane thing you could do to a human being. Yet they look over at Saudi Arabia and they look at what happened to, I forget the journalist, when he walked into the embassy and was murdered. But this is the same thing, and it's allowed to go on unabated. And the fact that Mississippi says that if there's any foul play, then XYZ, severed head is nothing but foul play. It's
That's
nothing but
unbelievable.
murder.
Yeah.
Yes. And if the Justice Department doesn't step up, what good are they?
What do we have to do in our community to keep these stories in front of us in a way that we are always mindful? Because it seems like, the story had been that when things happen, they had damage control and always tried to say it was one person, one bad actor doing something. It was a one-time event. But what you and I know is that this was, as I said, the culture. It happened all the time, everywhere, and at different levels. All of it meaning the disregard of the lives of Black people, human beings. And it could be the question of 1,000 little cuts, or it could be the ultimate decapitation, lynching of an individual. And it could be a lynching that's emotional, that's spiritual, that's financial, that's educational, but all together, the deprivation of opportunity and the forced marginalization of our people. And it has not changed, I don't think. What do we need to do to remind ourselves that it has not changed, and how do we have to keep working to change it?
Al, it definitely has not changed. Not here, not across the United States. And for those people who believe it's changed, I ask you this. If you believe it's changed, I want you to Google people who were murdered, who are Black and brown people who have been murdered and who the authorities have done nothing about, oftentimes at the hands of the local police. I want you, those who say that you're compassionate, Christian, Muslim, whatever, that you care about right in this society, to not stand by and do nothing. Where good people do nothing, evil prevails. And evil is definitely and has definitely prevailed in this nation as well as other countries where women are being slaughtered because they want the right to be educated and vice versa. We cannot look at other countries when this country is so ill and so evil. We need to clean up our house. We need people who believe in right, who believe in justice, who are decent and God-fearing and just good, to step forward and say, we will not stand by idly while this happens to anyone. It's monstrous. Yet when somebody gets shot in a white school, they have to shut it down, send in therapists, all of that. How do you think Black people feel when this is our reality, when we are gunned down in the street by police, when we can disappear and nobody will look to see what happened to us? We are in a constant state of fear, constant state of trauma. It's just a miracle we're not more psychotic and walking around totally paranoid. It's no wonder that we run when the police say get out of the car. And they said, I told them not to run. Well, they're running for fear of their life, yet the police with the guns shoot and kill them. And they say, I was afraid for my life. You got the gun.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane, talking with my dear friend and my guest today, Shirlynn LaChapelle. She's a nurse practitioner organizer in the community, a business owner, and just a great person, active in community at every level. Shirlynn, thank you for being here again. You know, when we talked before the show, you wanted to talk about, and this is not related, but related, the challenge that one of your children is facing in a Twin City school. Tell that story. What's going on?
Well, my grandson, who's autistic, he's a little lower down on the scale. He's not totally nonverbal. He's learned to say a few phrases, but he's in the school district out here in Maple Grove where my kids went to school. And this district has always been racist. And unfortunately, nothing has changed. My grandson has been being sent home with excuses like, oh, he threw up. He was holding sputum in his mouth and he spit it in the sink. That is not emesis. It's just an excuse. My son and his wife were feeling like my grandson had been bullied at school. And so I went up to school to talk to the special ed teacher, and the receptionist told me he was unavailable. Meanwhile, I met the principal, who's a lovely woman, and she said she would check into things and talk to the teacher and see what's going on, why he was being sent home. I also talked to the nurse, and she was a lovely person. And she said all she heard was what, the teacher had said, and I wanted to talk to him, didn't have access. Well, Friday before last, the principal called my son and his wife, and they said an incident had happened at the school between my grandson and a teacher. Now, I don't know if it's the special ed teacher who is a male, but my grandson had some bruising. And we're just waiting till the investigation is over, because we will hire an attorney. And this has got to stop. We have the means to hire an attorney, but this is probably not just happening to us. This is probably happening to other children in various school districts. There's less patience for our children than for the majority children, for white children. We have to be perfect. We have to be quiet. We have to not jump around in our seats, even though that's a diagnosable illness. We're held to a higher standard on all fronts. Whereas if other children who are white do it, oh, they're ADHD, oh, they have autism. You know what? We're all human. And by God, nobody's more human than us. So it needs to stop.
Mm-hmm. And so what happens too often in communities where our children are handled, managed, expected, the expectations of them is different from white kids. What happens? How does that happen? And what do we do about it?
What we do about it, and this is where the NAACP, other Black organizations, the Black community has to step up and unite. The only reason this has been going on so long is because we aren't up at the school en masse and demanding that this stop. It is happening and continues to happen because nothing happens to the school. It's time that we sue these various school districts that are allowing this. Nothing hurts like money going out of a community. Mm-hmm. Then change happens. Mm-hmm. Until it costs something, and they just sending out pacification letters and, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I can't believe this happened to you. That does nothing. It changes nothing. So we've got to go get organizations involved. We've got to ask for investigations. The Attorney General even, because these are hate crimes. I know I'm using strong language, but what is it but a hate crime? Mm-hmm. And our children are suffering. And then they come out and they're angry, they're acting out, and And then they may turn to violence because of things that are happening inside of what's supposed to be a safe environment for them, an educational institution. If you can't trust that, if you can't feel safe there as a child, where can you feel safe? We can't allow it.
Let me stretch on that a little bit, because you're describing a particular specific experience and set of experiences that our children experience in education. But if I ask you to look at the same dynamic in the health field in general, Black women's health, for example, Black people's health, I mean, as you're speaking about wanting to be in a safe place in a school, I'm thinking about wanting and thinking you're in a safe place in a hospital or at a doctor's office, but that isn't always the case for us. Talk about that, if you would.
No, it's not always the case. I will go right to the ER. I worked ER and ICU, and I've taken care of all kinds of patients. But I'm going to go to a specific patient, a patient who's got sickle cell anemia. And in Chicago, we treated it regularly all the time. Here, I would hear some of the doctors and nurses, they're just drug seeking. I gave them 100 milligrams of morphine, of Demerol. I gave them so much morphine and they're still complaining. Well, my God, a cancer patient with bone pain would still be complaining. Sickle cell anemia, that's bone pain. Oh my God, it's the worst pain in the world. They are not drug seeking. They need that pain release. They're low on oxygen. They have to get blood transfusions, hydration, and pain medication, enough to decrease the pain. Many of them don't live to get to be 40 years old. But it's even worse when you go to get care and you're being judged and not given care, and they're giving you subtherapeutic care because of their own biases. Let's forget sickle cell anemia. Let's just say another Black person comes in and they may not be clean. They might be homeless. So the judgment is they don't deserve, well, they should have taken care of themselves. They were probably out there drinking and using drugs. Now, we've done no tests yet, but that's the judgment. And because they're dirty, I don't really want to touch them. They probably got cooties and everything else. And you bring in a white patient who's still like that, who's just like that. Oh, poor thing, probably got some mental health issues. You know, total different dynamics on who gets treated, how they get treated, and the level of compassion and understanding. So racism is alive and well, and I've got to bring out the other thing, how nurses, doctors, and other healthcare providers who work in these systems are treated. Racist, undermining tactics by their colleagues who seek to not only get them fired, but cause them to lose their licenses. This is going on right now.
Motivated by what, Shirlynn? What motivates a professional, theoretically, to do this dirty work of trying to sabotage the career and the respect a person of color who's in the profession brings to the service of patients? Why would they do that?
The same racist hatred that has been going on for over 400 years in this nation. And it has gotten worse since number 45 was in office, who made it okay to victimize people of color. He made it okay to hate. So much okay that other countries, Brazil, countries overseas, again, are mimicking these tactics. But this isn't the first time that this country taught others how to hate and to brutalize people. I understand that during Hitler's reign, that they learned these techniques from here, how they treated the Black people in this country, how they lynched them, tortured, and all of those things. So this country has a long history of brutalization, lack of empathy, not seeing people who are different than them as human beings, yet claiming to be Christian all the time.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest is Shirlynn LaChapelle. Let me take a break from the conversation to remind you that this conversation, this program, this quality and intensity of programming, you'll only find here on KFAI. And what we want you to do is to support this program, support KFAI by becoming a member, pledging your financial support to the Spring Pledge Drive. Now, I think my friend is still with me in the studio. Are you there?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah, we are right here. Let me get this camera right. There we go. Hey, it is my
Miguel,
head.
thank you for jumping in again. So I can't say it enough. It's so important that people support what we're doing. And I'm glad that we have made a way for people to show their support and to help grow this business, this work of communicating and building community. So what do you think, Miguel?
No, I think you're right. I think even though KFAI may be a radio medium, and just like Inside News is also there's a print component, and it's also online as well. Organizations like yours, Al, and like KFAI, we have to think kind of beyond just the main medium, right? We are joined together here through a platform that's called StreamYard, right?
Yep.
And so in order for us to kind of stay relevant, but also meaning staying accessible to whether if it's folks who listen to us or folks that watch us with the captions even. This is all about just advancing and upgrading all of our needs for our listeners and subscribers, or just anybody in the city that has a moment to pay attention, just to make our content accessible. And I'm really proud of the ongoing long collaboration between KFAI and Insight News, and I really appreciate the kind of programming, dialogue, and conversation that you are bringing to KFAI's airwaves. So no, this is a wonderful partnership, and we're happy to provide this through the radio airwaves. And if you got that same degree of gratitude that I have, you can give us a call 612-375-9030, or you can give online as well at kfai.org.
Miguel, thank you, my friend. I'm going to bring you back a little later on before we go off the show to keep this appeal in front of our listeners and viewers, and even from around the country. So it would be cool if you're somewhere else, or if you are online, drop a chat. Let us know where you're listening or watching from. We'd love to get a sense of who is checking us out at the moment. Shirlynn, again, thank you for being here. We're talking about a very serious issue, and that is, how the structural racism is maintained and strengthened. And it seems to you and to me that things are getting worse, that, as you said, number 45 unleashed this demonic almost attitude in people who felt and who feel that their opportunity is disappearing, and that it's disappearing because other people may be getting opportunity. That's when they were marching saying, will not be replaced, I think. It was their slogan. And so, Mahmoud always said, though, that when people like that get their hackles up or get to where they swear that it's not going to change, that's when things are about to change. And so part of this feeling of a backlash that's coming from the conservatives and from the racists is simply an indication of how imminent and how inevitable the change that is at hand is becoming. What do you think about that?
I agree. I totally agree. They're fearful. And I'll give an example. The fact that the conservatives all over the country, and let's just use Florida and Texas, and I think the textbooks are either written in Texas or Louisiana, but anyway, the fact that they want to take literature off the shelves, to stop people from reading great works of art that have been available forever. This is mind control. And anybody who doesn't realize what's going on is they want to tell you how to think, what to think. And just in case you have an independent thought, they want to make sure that you don't have the information to do any critical thinking. So they only want you to have literature that agrees with what they want. Now, they're not teaching history because history has something to do with what actually happened, not what they wanted to change because it doesn't make them uncomfortable. But history is what actually happened to everyone. The 1619 Project, I suggest everybody read that book, but it's also on, I think, Netflix, and it's in multiple issues, and it's real history. There were things that I didn't know, and I thought I knew the history of Black people in this country for the 400 plus years. But that is something that we must read. When they try to hide something, that's something you better try to get a hold of.
Absolutely. Let me go back to your personal story. You also, Shirlynn, have been an effective business owner, business person here in the mortgage business and home ownership business, wealth creation business. And what's cool about this conversation is that you've got lived experiences in different areas. And I'm asking, how does the issue that we're talking about, and that is white supremacy and structural racism, show up in different areas where you show up as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as an educator, as a healer? And so when you look at real estate and wealth creation, what do you find?
I find, even though redlining is supposedly not still going on, there's another kind of redlining. When a Black family decides to sell their home, and then the bank sends in an appraiser, and it's been documented, by the way, some families lose $100,000 in equity. Then if they have the appraiser come out again, a different company, and they have a white family as the owner, pretend to be the owner, who leaves, shockingly, the appraisal goes up $100,000 to where it should be, actually, because every other house in the neighborhood that's similar is appraising at that dollar amount. Yet the appraiser before, when he had the information that this was a Black family, lowered the appraisal by $100,000. So that's one thing. When you get ready to sell your house, you've got to take all your pictures off the wall and anything that might show your ethnicity or your non-whiteness. Because again, if they do buy your house, they're going to lowball you, lowball you, lowball you. So this is ingrained, indoctrinated white supremacy, and banks will, with the same credit score, whites, Blacks, Latino, what have you, as a white couple, you can't get the same rate. You may not get approved at the same dollar amount. So nothing has changed. It's more covert because of the laws, but not really changed. And again, since 45 came in, we're going backwards, not forwards. And they're doing more to circumvent opportunities for Black people. And I'm going to say all of these companies that have this diversity and inclusion officers, many of them have these positions that they put people in, but the people have handcuffs. They cannot say, they cannot do. They're there as window dressing. They're there because it's the right thing to do, but God help them if they really try to change anything in the culture. So they're not there. They're not wanting change.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest, Shirlynn LaChapelle, entrepreneur, health professional, educator in our community. Shirlynn, thank you for being here. I wanted to go to your personal story because I love hearing you talking about growing up in Chicago, and give people an idea of your roots. I ask this question all the time. Whose shoulders do you stand on in your own family and in your own community? Who are the people that have motivated you, who've shaped you into the marvelous human being that you are today?
Thank you. I'm going to have to say my mother and father, and Dad died when I was 15. But my mother, strong. We lived in the projects, moved in after Dad got cancer, disability, but 8 kids, you know. Mm-hmm. And the gang member was harassing everybody on the block, and then they threatened us. And my parents filed charges, and they went down and they pressed charges, and they still threatened us. But then the leader of the gang's mother came down with him and begged us not to follow through. She promised that the gang would leave us alone and that her son would make sure of it, and he is not going to be in the gang anymore. Needless to say, that was true. That was what happened. That was when parents could control their children, when they knew something was going on. His parent worked all the time, so she didn't know all of this. Mm-hmm. And he had one more strike and he'd be going to prison for a long time.
Three strikes you go, right?
Yep. And needless to say, he became one of our best friends, his mother, and they put some poo-poo in our mailbox. He made them come clean it out.
Which projects did you live in Chicago? And talk about
Washington Park Homes, 6145 South Calumet. It's gone now. Most of them are gone.
Talk about the neighborhood that you grew up in. You said, the gang. I mean, was it that way when you started in that community, or did the gangs emerge at a certain time?
We got there in 1963, I think.
Okay.
And it was they were, around us.
Middle school then, or lower school?
Yes, I was at John Foster Dulles School. Mm-hmm. And that's who else made me strong. Mm-hmm. All my teachers are Black. My principal, my gym teacher was Black. I ran track. We didn't have a girls' basketball team, but I played basketball with the boys. Mm. They lifted us up. They told us we were smart. And then I went to Betsy Ross, where all my teachers were still Black, and my principal. And there, Mrs. Reed, I'll never forget her. And she said, "You are so smart. I want you to take the Lindblom test." I didn't know what Lindblom was. And she says, they only accept 10% of the students who pass the test and, all your Iowa basics and all those scores. So I was accepted. I met my husband there, who later became an engineer. And Lindblom was basically a feeder school, Lindblom Tech, for Illinois Institute of Technology. But I had people who believed in me. I had people who looked like me, who encouraged me every step of the way. Not until high school did I meet real demons. Mm-hmm. At a school that was only integrated, I think, 2 or 3 years before I got there. Mm-hmm. I remember Miss Shore, I'll never forget her, a real racist. She was a real demon. Now here I am, my first year algebra teacher, I can still remember her name. Mm-hmm. She would do things like, okay, I had swim before I had her class. So I might come in a minute late. But guess what? Behind me was 3 or 4 white girls. Yet she would stop me and say, I had to go to the office. I said, what about them? Don't backtalk me. You understand what I'm saying? So, of course, I wasn't leaving anywhere. And then she tried to pull me out, and I shrugged off. I said, don't put your hands on me. So then my parents would always be up at that school because I was not going to let her bully me nor touch me. So I will always remember that trauma because that was traumatic. When you have people who just don't like you for nothing you've really done, and you see how unfair it is.
How did you navigate being in a neighborhood that was kind of gang active, right? But then you had to go through school and church and shopping and stuff. How do you navigate that? How does it work?
Well, that's the funny part. We were an island. 62nd to 61st to 63rd in Calumet were Cossack Rangers surrounded by disciples. Now you tell me that's crazy. Why would they join a different gang? But I could get off and on the block quite easily. In fact, I had a boyfriend who was the leader of the disciples. I did not know it. I met him at Bud Billiken Parade, and it was shooting, and I was running because I had been on the track team, and he was running alongside me. He said, "Go this way." So I went that way, you know, and then he started going to church with me. I mean, I'm square, okay? He would go to church with me at St. Anselm. There was a sock hop after. Look, he even came over my house a few times. My parents sitting right up there because that's how it was. I didn't, you know, when I found out he was in the gang, somebody at school said, "You're going with the leader of the East Side Disciples." I said, "No, I'm not." Because he must have told everybody. I did not know his gang name was Cowboy. I only knew Russell Hawkins, okay?
Okay.
That's all I knew. I did not know the rest. So, yeah, and I'm still square, as you know.
But it's interesting that, you know, I mean, this is a great conversation because what I'm hearing is that even if he was Cowboy, to some people, he was Russell Hawkins. And ultimately, he was Russell Hawkins, and that the Cowboy moniker is a veneer, a construction, probably that he either, you know, was drawn to or created or used as resistance or protection, but it was part of an ecosystem that all of our families were involved with. And it also speaks to the fact that at the core, the Russell is a valuable human being, right? And so
he's even more that now. I looked him up on Facebook, and he's doing something with the police department. Okay. So turned it all around. You understand what I'm saying? And you're right. We do what we have to do to survive in a community where if you don't join, then you're the victim every day. And sometimes the victim gets shot, killed, or at the very least, beaten up every day by a group of people.
And so you were talking about the transition to a white school or school where you had white teachers, and you met the racism from teachers.
Yeah, teachers.
How did you navigate that? What was your mechanism for surviving it and not being crushed by it?
Again, growing up with my parents and my mother being the mother she is, and I would go every day. All the teachers weren't that bad. There were a few black teachers there, and there were some good white teachers who weren't like that. But there were some real snakes there as well. And the police at the school were snakes. Officer Jackson in particular, who was having sex with some of the students, who bragged about it to me. I happened to cut class and go to the school store across the street, but I cut study hall. You know, and there were some guys over there who cut too, and we would play poker. I'd take their money. But anyway, Officer Jackson comes over and Strooper, and Jackson says to me that I could get you suspended. I'm going to take you in here unless you have sex with me. And then he starts naming names of little girls that he had had sex with. And the guys sitting at the table, of course, they laughed. But they laughed because they were afraid to do anything else. So at the time, I was taking...
Jackson's a black cop?
Yeah. And Strooper was white. And at the time I was taking engineering, drafting floor plan for the model home. And that's a big piece of drafting paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote word for word what he had said. And I drew lots of lines and numbered it. And then I went right back out there. The guys were still sitting there, and they were the first ones who signed. And then I didn't go to class the rest of the day. I hung around the hallways. I had 500 signatures by the end of the day.
Oh.
But someone went and told, and do you know, some of the kids say, he's waiting on you out there. They're waiting on you. They know you've got that petition. I said, so?
Mm-hmm.
So I come out the door and he's out to give me that petition. I said, I'm giving you nothing. You better give me that. I said, I know my rights. And if you take it, I'll just make another one.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you know, you could disappear. I said, if I disappear, there's several hundred students out here who will know who disappeared me.
Mm-hmm.
So then they finally took me to the police department in the car, intimidating me all the way. I got my mother's stubbornness. I know my rights. Of course, youthful ignorance, okay? Feeling safer than I was. But they kept me for 3 hours, didn't call my family. This is in the fall. It was dark. Then they let me go, catch a bus, and it's dark outside. I get home. My parents didn't know what happened. Right. When I told them, they were burning hot. The next day we went up to school and the principal and the assistant principal were in the meeting, and they said, well, if she hadn't cut class, that never would have happened to her. My parents said, that ain't got nothing to do with this.
Right.
Why is this police officer having sex with children? You know, back then you weren't suing the school. Right. If you tried, it wouldn't go anywhere. We're talking 1967, okay? So nothing's going on. But my parents made such a stink that the next day, he was transferred out of there. But the unfortunate part is they sent him to some other school to rape kids. But no, my parents were fighters.
What do we do with the people in our own community who are predators against us in our community? And it's not just, I guess I'm framing this because of what you just told me, but really the general questions about how we humans lived in ways that are respectful and protective, you know, no matter where the dysfunction, you know, comes from, the idiocy comes from. What do we do? And maybe frame that in terms of your work as a mental health expert. What is it that makes us healthy and feel safe? And how do we nurture that and grow it both individually and collectively?
I think what makes us feel safe is when we unite together to fight things, to fight the system together. Predators, you know, I hate to say it, you know, we're women. And when women unite together, things get done. And I'm going to need mothers and young girls and whoever have been victimized, or if you see a young lady being victimized, if you see some old toad trying to talk to a young teenager, that you scream off your porch, say, hey, that's a child there. You need to move on. But I'm also saying that when this happens, that we don't say, not my business, because the next time it'll be your child. The next time something will happen to you and no one will do anything. We've got to say we're stronger together. That's true. There are only a few bad people out here, but they're operating like it's a million because no one ever does anything. And if my mother and father can stand up against the gang and who was shooting people up and down the block, surely we can do something about predators. We can do something about people who are shooting up and down the street and killing children. Surely that we should have enough guts, because all the times you didn't turn them in, the next time it's somebody else's kid. And the next time it may be your child. So we got to do something.
Yeah. What's your lineage, Shirlynn? You mentioned your mom and dad and the power that they poured into you. What are their stories? Where did they come from?
Mama from Memphis, Mississippi. You know, Memphis right across the thing from Mississippi.
Right.
Daddy from Mobile. And Daddy never went back down south after they moved to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. My father looked like a white man. He wasn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Something happened down in Alabama or Leakesville. We have relatives, so it might have happened in Leakesville, Mississippi. But he would never go south. And we went to a family reunion years after, in the late 90s, after he was gone. And there was a man who looked like he could have been my father's cousin. And he started, I wish he could have finished. People grabbed him and dragged him off, saying, yeah, something bad happened with your grandfather down here. Yeah, they left in the middle of the night. I don't know what that was, but I'll tell you, my father would never go south. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want any of us going south. So, of course, when my daughter moved to South Carolina, you can understand how I was feeling. I was in distress when Citibank moved some managers down there. I wouldn't let my grandson go for a year.
Wow. Yeah. That's trauma. Trauma still, right?
Yes, trauma still. Because I'm thinking lynch mob all the way. You know, I wish I could have gotten the story. He's dead now, the uncle, but I wish that I had a chance to just tape and get the stories of what happened with my family.
Any information in genealogy or family search about your roots? Do you have any sense?
Oh, yeah, I did do that. Mm-hmm. The majority of my African ancestry is Nigerian. That's so funny because most of my friends are Nigerian from Africa. My best friend in particular, Ben Omarubi. Then I've got some Ghana, what's the other one? Mali. Mm-hmm. Kind of rounding that, but then I'm a real mongrel because I go from North Africa all the way down to Southern. And then there's some Mediterranean and all the rest of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you know, the 30-some% European is everywhere.
What does it make you think and feel when you consider your Africanness? What does that do for you personally?
You know what? I feel powerful, but I've always felt that way.
Have you been to Africa?
I have. I've been to Kenya volunteering, and they told me I was Kenyan. They claimed me, but that was before I did my DNA thing. But I love those people in Kenya. They're wonderful. And I think Africa is an experience that everyone should have. We need to go home. We need to see it. We need to feel it. We need to have an infusion of who we really are as a people, so that we know we belong on this planet and we own this country. You know, all these Johnny-come-lately white folks who come in here and my country. Look, our people been here over 400 years. Mm-hmm. Some of them even before slavery. Some of them came over on the Mayflower, who were free people. So your country, you just got here. And we built this country, and the economy, not just of the U.S., but of the world, was built on slavery.
Right. Yeah. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Before I close, I want to take another minute and bring Brother Miguel back in to invite you, dear listeners, to support us here at KFAI. This is our Spring Pledge Drive. We've got some premiums for you, and want to let you know what you can expect and experience as you indicate your support for The Conversation with Al McFarlane, your support for KFAI. Brother Miguel,
hey, wonderful.
Talk about
wonderful show, Al, really. And this is the kind of programming you get when you tune into KFAI. This is what you get every day on The Conversation with Al McFarlane and Insight News. He is holding these conversations every week, and we are lucky just to get one of them live for our broadcast as well. and all these stories and insights that you won't get anywhere else on the radio dial at this point on Tuesday at 1 p.m. So a big thank you to Al for sharing his content with us, and a big thank you to the listeners who listen to the conversation through KFAI and of course, yeah, via YouTube as well. And this is how you support community media. You can give us a call 612-375-9030, or you can go online at kfai.org and yeah, support community media so we can keep content like this on your airwaves. Al, wow. Just really thank you for being here and having these conversations. I mean, I enjoy engineering your live feed every Tuesday. So really, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm the one who's fortunate and thankful for just the opportunity to be on this important platform. Well, we're down to the last few minutes. I wanted to bring Shirlynn LaChapelle back on. Shirlynn, what are you working on right now? What's on your? We didn't talk about politics. I love talking to you about politics because you're knowledgeable. And I was telling somebody, Shirlynn has strong opinions, and she's always right. She's always right, So,
are you talking about the time I said I supported?
There was a certain governor's election a few years ago. We were both doing some political precinct work, and you said I'm supporting so and so. I said, not going to happen, and it happened. So I learned my lesson then,
But I had good reason. Good reason. Yeah. I supported him because he was a teacher in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And that told me many things, that you're not afraid of black, brown, or other people. Mm-hmm. You are not turned off by poor people, and you're not a chicken, and you're committed and have compassion, even though you're so wealthy that you don't have to do it. So I was convinced.
Yeah. Well, you were way out in front of everybody else, as I know, because everybody was looking at you funny when you came out early announcing your choice, and you won. You won. That was good. What's on your plate right now? And especially thinking about the $16 or $18 million budget surplus. We've got about a minute left. What do we do? How do we mobilize our community to make sure we get our issues addressed and the money moving to our side of the table, employing our people, our solution providers?
Number one, we need to contact those people that we elected to support the mission that our community needs to happen. Also, we need to vote. I am tired of people saying, oh, it doesn't matter if you vote or not, nothing's going to change. Well, all of those things that you count on, MFib, you name it, if the wrong people get in, they will end that. Mm-hmm. You have the power, and if you don't use it, you have nobody to blame but yourself for how your life's going to crumble. What I'm working on helping to empower our people to move to the next level. I'm working to help us accept that mental illness is not something that we shouldn't deal with. Everybody's got some bit of mental illness. I suffer with depression. It's treated. I feel great. I didn't feel great before I got treated. Mm-hmm. You got to talk to somebody. A secret's only a secret if you hold it in. And by holding it in, if it's torturing you, you need to let the torture out. So I want us to accept people.
Stop right there. We're out of time. Listen, Shirlynn LaChapelle, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Support KFAI. Pledge, contribute right now.